your P5 science class on Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. with me, Miss Raz. So you can see the tiny me waving at you from the screen. And today we are going to continue learning about reproduction in flowering plants. In fact, we only have 1 week of the lesson to finish up this topic, which is next week. And then after that, next week, we'll roll over to a new topic. So we're going to move on to today's objectives. Okay, what are we learning to do? Right, so number 1, we are going to look at the conditions necessary for germination to take place. Right, number 2, trace the stages of growth of a plant from a seed to a young plant, basically like the life cycle. Right, and then number 3, recognize that non-flowering plants grow from spores. Okay, this part here is very short because in your syllabus, there's not too much emphasis on non-flowering plants, right? So this is just like 1 page, 2 page of information only. And then finally, recognize that characteristics are passed on from parent plants to their young during reproduction. Okay, so these are the 4 main objectives that we are going to cover for today, right? So hopefully, we can learn all of this effectively by today, okay? So just a quick recap before we proceed. Right, so far, okay, for the past lessons, we have covered the why reproduction is needed. Sorry about that. Why reproduction is needed in the first place for all living things, which is to ensure continuity of their kind. Okay, so we've learned about this during the very first lesson. And then we also talked a little bit about what are some of the characteristics that parents pass to the young. So we're talking about every living thing, okay, not just plants, not just animals. So later on in the slides, you'll find out, okay, what type of characteristics will plants pass down to their young or the baby plants. Then we branch out into 2 sections, which is the flowering plants, which we covered quite extensively. Okay, we talk about the male reproductive parts, we talk about the female reproductive parts, and then something happened between these 2. Okay, who can tell me what was one of the first processes that we learned? Right, so from the male reproductive parts and the female reproductive parts, pollination, that's the first part. And then after pollination, what happens? There will be the pollen tube growing down, and that would lead to, okay, actually say fertilization. Excellent. Okay, so we covered this in like the first 2 lessons of the academic year. So if you cannot remember, okay, I suggest you go back to the recorded videos to rewatch my lesson again. And then let's see. After fertilization, okay, eventually the plant will develop fruits. Okay, and then inside the fruits, you will find seeds. So last week, we learned about seeds, okay, being dispersed by the 4 methods. So this is under dispersal. Very good. Okay, and then we talked about, by animals, by water, by wind, by explosive or splitting. Right, and then today, finally, we're going to talk about what happened, okay, after the seeds are being dispersed, right? How do they grow and what do they need? Yeah, so that will be germination, which is the topic that we're going to look at for today. All right, so let me just look at the chat app real quick if there's any more questions. All right, for those who have not learned before, like I said, you can always revisit some of the previous recorded videos. Okay, so is pollination the same as dispersion? It's different because pollination, we're talking about, okay, spreading pollen grains. Whereas dispersal is for seeds. Yeah, so that is the difference. And if you remember, pollination goes by 2 ways. Who can tell me what are the 2 modes of pollination? Who do the plants depend on? Insects, animals, okay, insects or birds, and then also by wind. Very good. So some of them are quite similar because they have the wind, and then we also have animals, okay, animal pollination such as your insects or birds. Okay, so we also covered this. Yes, they are the pollinators. Very good. Any other questions about the mind map? This question was raised up by somebody last week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to remember who's the student who asked me this question. Okay, anyway, the question was, how do cactus plants disperse their seeds? Right, so if you look at this picture, okay, I didn't know the answer to that question, and then I went to do research, and then I went to find out, the method of dispersal for cactus plants. Yeah, so if you look at the image here, what do you see on top of the cactus? What is this part here? It's the fruit. Yes, it's the fruit. So if you look at the fruit, it's like very brightly colored, looks a bit like quite fleshy, right? Like it looks like very thick. So most likely it will be dispersed by what? Who can give a guess? It's dispersed by animals. Yes. Do you know that some cactus fruits are edible? That people actually eat them, but I've never tried it before. I'm not sure how to cook it, but yeah. So they do attract animals, and animals will feed on this, or some of them can actually have like spikes, so the spikes will get attached to the body, the outer covering of the animals. Yeah. Okay, so that's quite an interesting question. So whenever if you see a plant that has like fleshy fruits, can grow fruits, most likely it will require the help of animals for their seed dispersal. Okay, so how do they reproduce? By seeds, and then the seeds eventually will form into another new cactus plant. Yes, the prickly pear, I think one of the examples. So there are many different types. Okay, so that was a good, interesting question. So anyway, we've learned about how the seed has been dispersed, right? Like how they can get dispersed. So now we're going to learn about what happens after that. Okay, so once they land onto like let's say a soil or like a ground, okay, what happens to the seed? So it will eventually develop into a baby plant, right, or a young plant, and this process is called germination. So before we look at the required factors for germination, we look at the structure of the seed first. This part here is pretty important, so you might want to take down your notes here, because you're expected to know the different parts of a seed and also the function. Okay, so on the green side here, okay, you can see that this is the baby plant that will eventually grow into a big plant. But part of the seed, okay, we have the seed leaf and the seed coat. The seed leaf is this yellow color part here, which is helps to store food for the baby plant. So this part here is edible. Okay, this is the food. And then on the outer part, okay, which is the seed coat, it is a protective covering for the seed. Okay, so if you have ever eaten, you don't have like peanut allergy or something, you've eaten peanuts before, you're basically eating the seeds. I suppose not all seeds are edible, but most should be. So the ones that we can eat are definitely edible. Yeah. Okay, so just take note, seed leaf and seed coat. And some of the common mistakes that students make is that they think the seed leaf is the same as the leaf over here. Okay, it is different. All right, it's a different term. Who can tell me what is the name of the leaf over here? There's actually a name for it. Ooh, very good. A lot of you can tell me it is the true leaf. Okay, true, or sometimes they call it the first leaf or the true leaves, right? And this will eventually help to make food for the plant. Okay, this will be the ones that you see growing into a big plant. Whereas the seed leaf is just this yellow part here. So there are two separate things, all right? And yes, there will be bubble questions for today. So don't worry, later I will show you the bubble question. Okay, so we move on to the next part first. Okay, I want to show you an animation so that you can visualize the process better. Okay, and as we go along, okay, I will narrate for you as well, all right? So let's watch together. Okay, so first, we have the seed. Okay, a very cute seed just sitting there in the soil. And then it states there, seed germinates under 3 suitable conditions. Okay, water, warmth, and air. All right, 3 conditions. And then, with all these 3 conditions present, the seed will eventually sprout its root first. Okay, so the first thing that comes out from the seed will be the root. And it helps to absorb, okay, water and mineral salts. Can you see that? Okay, so you absorb water and mineral salt. After that, okay, after it has grown a little bit bigger, it will start to pop up. Okay, and then you can see that while it's still underground, it needs the seed leaf as food, but then it starts to shoot upwards and start to grow its true leaf. Okay, so the word that they use for this part is called the shoot. Okay, so shoot is made up of the stem and the leaf. Okay, two things. Right, so this part, please take note. Okay, shoot contains leaf, the true leaf, if you want to be more specific, plus the stem. That's what it means by when the shoot starts to grow. Okay, we are forming the stem, which is this part over here. Okay, this part over here, this is the stem, and then this is the true leaves. Okay, why is the seed above? It will actually come up together. Okay, some of them will actually come up together, some of them will actually just stay underneath the ground, depending on the type of plant. Okay, so let's watch. And then after that, whee! So the plant is very happy because there's a lot of sunlight and it will grow bigger, but at the same time, the seed leaf will actually drop off because seed leaf no longer have a function or purpose. You see that? Okay, so the part here was quite quick. So let me just pause here. Over to this part. This part here. Okay, so you notice that the seed leaf will eventually shrivel. Shrivel means it will shrink. Okay, become smaller, and then it will just break down after serving its purpose. What happened to the seed coat? It will also break down. It will actually tear apart. When the seed is germinating, the seed coat is actually the first one that will tear apart. Okay? All right, good. So let's move on. Right, so this page is basically just a summary of what you saw just now in the animation, and you can also find this inside your textbook. So the key points here is basically talking about the stages, all right? So the first stage is always talk about, okay, after germination has taken place, the root, okay, will grow first. And during this stage, the baby plant is unable to make its own food, okay, because there's no true leaf yet. After that, the shoot grows. And once the shoot have grown properly with the leaf being developed, okay, the first leaf or the true leaf, then it can start to make its own food. Okay, who can remember what is the name of the process here when the plant can start to make its own food? Okay, photosynthesis. If you cannot remember this term, it is okay. In exams, you can just say make its own food. It's fine. You'll also get correct. Yeah, if you don't know how to spell photosynthesis, you can just say the plants can make food in the presence of sunlight. Can the food from the seed leaf ever run out? Yes, it will run out once the plant has grown bigger. Then the plant don't need the food from the seed leaf anymore. So that's why it will shrivel up and it will just break down. Now, finally, for your bubble questions, the one that you've been waiting for, okay, you've been telling me, how many was bubble question, Miss Ross? Okay, here it is. Right, so a young seedling can grow from a seed under favorable condition. Favorable means suitable, okay, suitable conditions. Which one of the following statements about the seedling is true? So there are 4 options for you to try. Okay, so if you remember during the process just now, during the animation, right, which statement is true? Oh dear, you missed out. You said it was easy, but some of you made that error. Okay, why is it not option 4? Because what's missing? The seed needs only air and water. Need food? No, there's the third condition. Yes, needs warmth. Just now I saw somebody mention a shortcut way of remembering this. Okay, you can remember it as either wow or wow. Okay, water, air, warmth, or if you want to be even more specific, water, oxygen, warmth. Does this look very familiar to you? Yeah, so you can remember water, air, warmth, or water, oxygen, warmth. Okay, either answer is correct. So for this question, answer 1 is correct. Okay, the seedling gets its food from its seed leaves, right? Before it can grow its own shoot. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Next question. Okay, you're asking for a more difficult question. Okay, so let's see the question difficulty increase over time. All right. Study the diagram below carefully. Which of the following correctly shows the stages of growth of a bean plant? All right. So for this one, I think okay, no need to have too much explanation. You can just see that this is number 1. Nothing has been grown yet. It's just a regular seed. And then the first part that emerge out will be the roots, okay, followed by more roots. Okay, these tiny lines here, we call it the root hair. You know, just like you and I, we have hair. So this is the root hair. And then after that, number 4, okay, you can start seeing the little leaves growing upwards. Okay, very cute. And finally, yay, the plant is able to support itself. Next question. Today, a lot of bubble question. Okay, bubble question 3. Jack observed some green bean seeds germinated and he recorded his observation as shown in the table below. So this is a little bit more difficult, right? So we have a set of data that you have to understand. Okay, on this side here, we have the days. Okay, and then this will be the observation that he has recorded. Right, so he recorded his observation on day 2, day 3, day 4, and then 1 week later, day 7, and then finally 2 weeks later, day 14. And this is what he wrote down. Okay, so seeds swell up. Swell ups mean grow slightly bigger. So let's say this is the original size of the seed. Then after that, it swell up, it will become like a bit fatter like that. Okay, swell. Ding. Okay, then after that, the seed coat breaks. The root starts to appear. The shoot starts to appear. The shriveled seed leaves have dropped off. Now, the question is, from which day onwards were the seedling most likely able to start to make its own food? So which day do you think the seedling or the baby plant is able to make its own food? Is it day 2? Is it day 4? Is it day 7? Or is it day 14? Yeah, so if you were paying attention, okay, you know that I've already sort of given you the clue earlier on. So the answer for this question should be option number 3. And for those who did not get tricked, okay, you're able to tell me, okay, what's the clue in day 7? It's the shoot, right? And what does the shoot contain? 2 things. The shoot will contain the leaf and stem. Yes. And of course, when you have the leaf growing, okay, the leaf is able to make food for the plant. So it becomes independent. Now the question is, why does the seed swell up? Okay, because when it takes in water, right, it will tend to grow a little bit in size, and it also needs to break open the seed coat so that the roots is able to grow out. Yeah, so imagine if you soak something in water for a long time, of course it would just like start to swell up, right? Yeah. Okay, all right, moving on. Question 4. Now, even more difficult because now you need to know how to read a graph. The following graph shows the mass of growing seedling and the mass of seed leaves. So you need to choose the correct one, right? How do you read the graph? This is a little bit like math. Okay, on this side here, which is your y-axis, you're measuring the mass. Okay, and then on the x-axis is measuring the number of days. So over the number of days, look at the trend showing the mass of the seedling and the mass of the seed leaves. So clue is, okay, what do you think happens to the mass of the seedling, which is the baby plant, and the seed leaves over time? Oh, not too bad. An improvement from the previous question. Okay, definitely an improvement, which is a good sign. The answer should be option 1. Okay, option 1. Why? Because if you remember, the seedling is the baby plant, right? The one that will grow the stem and the leaves. So of course, over time, the seedling will grow bigger, right? It will grow bigger. So that's why the graph goes upwards. Whereas the seed leaves was part of the seed. Remember the yellow part? Where's my yellow pen? Yellow part here. This is the seed leaf. So over time, okay, the seed leaf, after it has done its purpose, it will start to shrink. Okay, its purpose is to provide food for the baby plant when it is still under the ground. But once it has emerged out of the ground with the leaf and the stem, then the seed leaf will be like, okay, bye-bye, I finished my job already, bye. And then it will shrivel up and it will fall off. Yeah. Now, question number 5. We have more experiment questions. So for this topic, they love to ask experimental-based questions. 4 setups containing seeds were kept at room temperature in the science laboratory. In which setup will the seeds germinate? Okay, so big clue. Just remember, wow, or wah? And then you look at this setup and then you try to tell me if the conditions are present. If all three conditions are present, which is warm, water, oxygen, then or air, okay, then your seeds will most probably be able to grow. So the answer is option 1, right? Because water comes from the moist cotton wool. Where does the air comes from? From the atmosphere. Yeah, you did it. Air can just come in. Okay, and then of course we have warmth because the key word here is room temperature. Okay, on average, most seeds are able to germinate, okay, from about 20 degrees Celsius to around 35 degrees Celsius. Okay, these are the usual range in which the seed is able to germinate, and temperature falls under this range. Okay, so it does have warmth. Now, question, why not 2? 2 is very similar, but only one difference. Boil. What is the temperature of boiling? Temperature of boiling of water is 100 degrees Celsius. Wow. Okay, look. Plants germinate between 20 to 35 degrees Celsius. If you put it under 100 degrees Celsius, what do you think will happen to the seeds? It will die, okay, because it's a living thing and you're boiling it. So you're essentially cooking the seeds. If you cook the seed, it will not grow into a plant. Yeah, so that's why if you boil the seed, it will no longer germinate, okay, it will have died off already. Last 2, I think it's very clear because you see this word oil. What does oil help to prevent? What does it help to prevent? Trap air? No, it doesn't trap air, but it prevents air from entering. Yes. Okay, prevents air from entering. All right, so that's the reason why air cannot enter. Okay, cannot enter. Yeah. And of course, the last one also don't have any water. Yes. Okay, so we move on. Now, some interesting facts before we continue with the bubble question. Some seeds actually undergo this process called dormancy, okay, which is like a sleeping period for the seed, which delays germination until the conditions are suitable. So the seed will not germinate until it finds a place that have the 3 factors, okay, which is the warmth, the correct temperature, then oxygen, and then water. And because of that, they are able to withstand extreme conditions. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, let's look at this one example here. Seeds that love fire. Okay, there's this particular plant called the Banksia plants that actually rely on fire, okay, before its seeds can germinate. So what happened during this process is, okay, the parent plant will die, but the fruit will open up to release the seeds. And then, thanks to the fire, the soil is now cleared of competitors, means no other competitors there, and it is also fertilized with ash. Yeah, so the parent plant have to die first before the next generation can grow. So this is like the ultimate sacrifice. Yeah, and this is not very common. Okay, you can only find this kind of plants in countries that are very dry and very hot. Yeah, so quite interesting, right? But these are very uncommon or very rare type of plants. Not all plants will undergo this. Which country? Probably Australia, I think, and some parts of like near Europe. Yes. Okay, so it has to be very hot, very dry, and we're talking about natural forest fire. Okay, not the one that somebody, you know, throw their cigarette and then it burns the whole forest. No, this is natural, and we can't find this in Singapore. This is not a tropical plant. Yeah, Singapore is hot, but it's also very humid. Means got a lot of water in the air. Okay, let's move on. Also, another interesting fact. Okay, we have the oldest living seeds. Remember just now I talked to you about dormancy, if the seed sleeps. Okay, so we have the oldest known seed. Okay, it's called the Judean date palm, which went through 2,000 years of dormancy. Means it slept for 2,000 years before they are germinated. And these seeds were found buried deep in a dry ground, okay, somewhere in the Asian palace in Palestine or Israel. And in 2005, okay, only in 2005, a group of scientists successfully germinated and grew the palm trees. And this is the actual plant that they grew. So imagine that, okay, the seeds were found buried in some ancient palace. They took it out and they'd be like, what kind of seeds is this? And then they went to try and germinate it, give it suitable temperature, oxygen, water, and then it actually grew. Wow, can you imagine? So that's why I said seeds are very incredible. They can survive. Okay, some types of seeds can survive up to 2,000 years. And yeah, so now they're growing more of this plant. Yeah, quite interesting, right? All right, moving on. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the non-flowering plants, which I said just now is only a short part. Okay, so all you need to know for non-flowering plants in your syllabus is that they reproduce by spores instead of seeds. Okay, so take note. And plants, usually like ferns, okay, ferns is a very common example. They have spore bags. Have you seen this before? From underneath the fern, okay, these little brown spots here. Have you touched them before? If you've touched them before, you're literally touching the spores. Yes, so these spore bags contains thousands of spores, okay, thousands of spores. All right, and when they mature, okay, they will then depend on wind for dispersal. So that means the spores, okay, what do you think will be the characteristics of spores if they depend on wind for dispersal? What will be the two main characteristics? Very good. Hannah, as well as Melody, said light and small. Okay, so they look like little dust. I mean, if you have a chance, you can always go and touch some ferns, but be careful, okay? Bird nest fern is still, quite safe to touch, right? But if you're looking at fern that you've never seen before, please don't anyhow touch, okay? Yeah, so the spores are very tiny, they're very light, and they tend to float in air, and they can actually land on almost anywhere. So you've seen bird nest fern growing on like top of tall trees because the spores happen to land on the tree branch. Yes. Okay, so we move on to the next bubble question first. Okay, question 6. Plants that reproduce by spores produce thousands of spores at a time. Okay, thousands. The following statement below explain why the plant produces such a large number of spores. Okay, so let's look at the statement and then choose the correct one. Okay, a large number of spores ensures a healthy plant. Large number of spores ensure dispersal by wind. Large number of spores increases the chance that the spores grow into a new plant. So the key words here, okay, the clue for those who are not too sure. Explain why plants produce a large number of spores. Okay, so I think I can launch the question now, right? Any other questions before I launch this question? Let me take a look at results first. Yep, as expected. Okay, some of you were tricked. You wrote option. Actually, quite a number of you wrote option 3, quite a number of you wrote option 4, but the answer is only option 2, right? So why? Why is it that it's only 2? Because like I said, large number of spores, okay, it's to ensure or increase the chance of growing. Yeah, because remember just now we talked about how, what happens if the spore land on your body, if it lands on something else. Okay, not all the places where the spores land are suitable for germination. Okay, so for growth. So that's why the plant needs to like release a lot of the spores and hoping that maybe out of the 1,000 spore, maybe 70 of them are able to land on a suitable place and then grow into new baby plants. Yeah, so that's the main reason. Okay, it is not A, because large number of spores ensure a healthy plant does not have any relation to that. Large number of spores ensure dispersal of wind. This is not quite true because we're talking about not large number, but rather being light and small. Then ensures dispersal by wind. Question 7. Wow, so many questions. Okay, bubble question 7. Bala went overseas for a year and returned to his home to find ferns growing in his garden. He was certain that he did not plant the ferns himself. So he was like, huh? He just came back and suddenly see one big fern growing in his garden. And he's like, what? I never grew this garden. I never grew this fern before. And then he was like, he wondered where they had come from. Which of the following statements would possibly explain how the ferns got into his garden? So does that mean the fern suddenly one day, oh, I like Bala's garden, I just want to live there? Can the fern just like walk over? So look at the options. Okay, think about what do you think will be the possible reason? Okay, and then tell me what is the answer. Majority still got it correct, so that's not too bad. But some of you were saying that there's a second answer. Which second answer do you think it was? Number 4. Okay, so let me tell you why the answer is number 1. Okay, first of all, we've learned that spores were carried into the garden by wind. I mean, everyone can agree with this, right? Because the spores are light and small. Yes. Okay, now number 2, definitely incorrect. Although there are a few who actually wrote number 2. Why are you talking about apple tree? Apple tree gives out what? Spores? No. What does the apple tree produce? Look at the apple. There's a fruit. Inside the fruit, there is seed. Yeah, so this is reproduced by seed. Okay, so nothing to do with spores. And of course, we're talking about fern. So, the spores were carried into the garden by explosive mechanism. Have you seen a fern just explode? Probably not, right? Yeah, so explosive is mainly for seeds, okay, dispersal. So definitely not. Now, let's look at number 4. Why is it that 4 cannot be the answer? Who can tell me? Okay, I see that a lot of you can tell me 1 is the answer, right? But who can help to explain to me why 4 is not the answer? Too small, but I mean the bird can accidentally eat spores, but it will not, damage the body. But why is it that it cannot grow? Because the spores, do you think it can survive the bird's digestive system? Yes, it cannot survive the digestive system of the birds. Only certain seeds can do that. Yeah, so it might just, break down. Because of the acid and everything, it will break down. So by the time it comes up, okay, the spores cannot grow into a new plant already. Yeah, it cannot survive. Okay, that's why the answer is incorrect. Okay, we're not talking about seeds. Okay, seeds maybe still have a chance, but for spores, they are not able to survive. Yeah. Now let's look at some of the characteristics that plants pass on to the young. But before that, just some appreciation for the person who discovered this. Okay, he is called Gregor Mendel, and he's an Austrian scientist. So what he tried to do is, at first, okay, he took a tall pea plant and then tried to breed it with a short pea plant. And then the first generation, he noticed that, all of them grew tall. So the characteristic that is passed down, okay, from the parent generation to the young generation is the height, right? The tall height. But then after that, when he does like self-fertilization or self-pollination, the second generation has both tall and short characteristics. So where does the short characteristics come from? From? The grandparents. Yes, so Sophia can tell me it's the genes. All right, so you learn more about this when we look at family trees, right, in the next topic. Okay, so that's how they discover it, right? And what are some examples? Okay, so for your syllabus, you only need to tell me, they can pass characteristics such as shape, color, okay, size of flowers and leaves, and that's it. Okay, you do not need to tell me the details that you see on the screen. For example, you don't have to tell me, eggshell or terminal flower. Okay, no need. Okay, it's too high level for you. Right, all you need to know is this part here. Okay, so if you look at the baby plant, right, it will have the same type of fruit, same type of flowers, same type of leaf, okay, shape, size, it will follow the parent plants. Now, finally, this is the last part. Okay, we're going to look at the life cycle. So you've learned about life cycle in your lower primary block, right? You've learned about life cycle of plants before. And back then you learned, there's only like 3 stages. But now you're going to learn more because you are now learning P5 or upper block content. So let's see. Okay, we have the adult plant and then we have to fill up the blank. So you need to help me now. Okay, how do I fill up this blank? So for the first one over here, or maybe we start from here first. Okay, adult plant will grow what? Adult plant will straight away grow seeds. You mean when the plant starts to grow and then all the seeds fall out? No, it should be the flowers. Yes, the flowers. Okay, after it grows flower, okay, it's matured. Then the flower undergoes, okay, pollination to form fruit. Wow, I see a lot of you say fruit, 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 fruit. Okay, after fruit will form the seed. And finally, the seed undergo germination to form, yes, the seedling. Good job so far. All right, so next part, this is only part A. Okay, let's see if everybody can get this correct for part B. If I'm happy with your answer for part B, then everybody will get some more bubbles. When do the processes of pollination, fertilization, and germination take place? Identify these processes using the letters A, B, C, D, or E. Your answer can be repeated. Okay, so let's take a look. Where do you think pollination takes place? Let me look at the answer first. Pollination is when you have the male part and the female part, right? So it should be what? C. Okay, C. All right, let me see the answer. Oh, yes. Okay, so it should be C. During this part here, before it can form the fruit, pollination needs to take place first. Then how about fertilization? C. Okay, let's see. Yes. Don't get tricked. Okay, like I said just now, your answer can be repeated. Right, so from flower to fruit, fertilization and pollination must take place first. Okay, because if you remember, this one, okay, recap. Flower, you have two parts, right? So you have the ovary that form into the fruit. Okay, and then part of it, eventually you have the ovules that will eventually form into the seed. Okay, so you must form the fruit first. And this part here requires pollination, requires fertilization. And finally, where is germination? Germination, this one is the simplest one because it's a focus for today. Yes, an outstanding number of students are able to tell me is E. Yay! Give yourself a round of applause. All right, just one last slide before I end off today. This is an initiative for Singaporean students. Okay, do you know that NParks or the National Parks Board are giving out free seeds for you to grow at home? So if you have green fingers or if your parents have green fingers and you would like to grow your own edible vegetables, okay, such as cabbage and kale, you can actually sign up for this program. And they will send you, you see they're very cute. They will send you the seeds in a packet and they will deliver it to you. But you have to sign up for it. And I think for this year, it's already over, the signing up period. So you have to wait for next year. And it's also while stock lasts. Yeah, so I'm still waiting. I actually signed up for this. Okay, once I get the packet, then I will share with you. Because my parents love to grow plants outside the house. So yeah, I'm still waiting for the seeds to come. Okay, so just take note if you are interested in this. All right, so last page for today. Okay, what we have learned so far. This is the summary. Right, so we learned about the conditions necessary for germination to take place. Okay, you remember a lot of you say wow, a lot of you say okay, either way, if you can remember it well, that is great. Okay, if some of you remember it as air, water, warmth. Some of you like to remember wow. Because you want to be more specific, you say oxygen, also can. Or you want to say where, which is air, also fine. And then we talk about the stages of growth, okay, the life cycle, essentially. And talk a little bit about flowering plants, non-flowering plants, okay, growing from spores, which is literally by wind dispersal. And some of the characteristics that are being passed down from parents to plant include the size of the plant, the color, the shape, and so on and so forth. Yes, okay. So if you still have more questions or want me to go back to certain slides, you can stay back for like 5 minutes. Otherwise, I will see all of you again next week. Okay, same time, same place. All right. Bye-bye. For those who have to go, all right, see you again.